You're listening to an iHeart podcast.
Yo, K-pop fans, are you ready? It's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you the K-Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music, idols, exclusive interviews, and even the real behind-the-scenes K-pop stories. Plus, you, the fans, you're part of the show. And you can get a chance to jump in, share your opinions, and be part of the conversation like never before. And trust me, you never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K-Factor starting on April 16 on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast. It's a K-pop experience. Are you in? Let's go.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly. I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take phone calls from anonymous strangers as a fake gecko therapist and try to learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's very interesting. Check it out for yourself by searching for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Kristen Davis, host of the podcast Are You a Charlotte? Sarah Jessica Parker is here, and she is sharing stories from the very beginning, like the time she forgot we filmed the pilot episode.
I remember some things about shooting the pilot.
Right. I have some memories I can fill you in.
You're going to fill me in.
Yes, but then you forgot about it
in
the very long time they took to pick us up.
It.
Listen to Are You a Charlotte on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Made for This Mountain podcast exists to empower listeners to rise above their inner struggles and face the mountain in front of them. So during Mental Health Awareness Month, tune into the podcast, focus on your emotional well-being, and then climb that mountain.
You will never be able to change or grow through the thing that you refuse to identify. The thing that you refuse to say, hey, this is my mountain. This is the struggle.
Listen to Made for This Mountain on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I think it's a sign of great mental health to acknowledge the dark wolf inside you.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and on a recent episode of The One You Feed, Josh Radnor from How I Met Your Mother joins us to talk about fame, self-acceptance, aging, and finding peace in discomfort.
That is the mercy of time. That time, it is a healer.
To hear this and more on healing, identity, and the wisdom of slowing down, open your free iHeartRadio app, search One You Feed, and listen now.
It is time now for today's Strawberry Letter. And if you need advice on relationships, work, sex, parenting, and more, please submit your Strawberry Letter to Steve Harvey FM. All you have to do is click Submit Strawberry Letter. And we could be reading your letter live on the air, just like we're going to read this one right here, right now. And it might be yours. You never know. Could be.
It could be yours. Buckle up. Hold on tight. We got it for you. Here it is. Strawberry Letter.
Thank you, nephew. Subject, he's hiding money in our Raggedy house. Dear Steve and Shirley, I'm a 49-year-old married woman and my husband is 59. We've been married for 6 years and this is my first marriage and his second. We dated a good while before he asked me to marry him. And when I accepted his proposal, I told him that I didn't want to live in the house that he and his wife and kids lived in. He rented out his house and we bought a fixer-upper house in a great neighborhood. I wanted a new house, or at least one that was in great condition. He promised me that he had some great contractors that would make my dream a reality. The house is so old that we still have linoleum tiles on the kitchen floor. I contacted a professional company to get a flooring estimate, and I wanted to replace all the laminate countertops in the kitchen. It had been 6 years, and I saved up money to do a few little things. He hemmed and hawed, but he eventually helped me pick out our flooring. He didn't offer to help me pay for anything because he said it was my impatience that led to the renovation. A few weeks later, we were packing up to go to my parents' home temporarily while our floors are getting installed, and I just happened to be peeking in at him in the bedroom. He carefully pulled a big envelope out of a shoebox, and I saw hundreds of dollars. I ran into the room and tackled him and grabbed the envelope. All he could say is that he had to keep a stash because I love spending his money. I don't know how he thought it was okay to hide this large sum of money from me. I'm wondering if he planned to leave me in this raggedy house. Is that why he's not interested in doing any upgrades? What is he up to? Well, before we get to that, I just got to say the visual of you busting in the bedroom and tackling your husband, it's just a little funny, okay? That visual is funny. And I mean, you asked the question, what is he up to? Who knows what Mr. Secretive is up to and why is he being so shady with his money? I'm all for having your own money and not having to always ask someone, your husband in this case, for cash. And of course, there's also the house money and the bill money. But just something about this doesn't sit well with me. I mean, first you say it's been 6 years since you've been in this fixer-upper and nothing has been fixed up. And didn't you also say that you saved the money yourself with no help from your husband? He said it was your impatience that led to the renovation. I don't understand that statement. What is he talking about? It's been 6 years since you guys have been in that house and nothing has been done. I mean, it's his house too. Seems like he would want it remodeled. I mean, especially the linoleum floors. The only explanation he had for stashing is that you love to spend his money. His money, I mean, it's our money. You guys are married. You're spending money on the house. You save the money for the house. Is he trying to say if you knew he had this secret money, you would have spent that on the house or something else? I'm so confused with that statement. I mean, what is his stash money for if it's not for the house? He sounds just very cheap to me, very selfish to me, and he doesn't have any intentions after 6 years of fixing this house up. I don't see that. So now that you've caught him with this money, you need to find out what he's up to. We don't know what he's up to. Insist, if you guys are going to stay married, on a joint bank account for the house, for the renovations. It's been 6 years. Let's go. Both of you should be contributing, not just you. It's his house too, and it's his cheapness why his first marriage fails. These are some of the questions you need to ask him. If you find out the answers to this, maybe you'll find out what the money he stashed is all about. Other than that, I don't know. This is crazy. You need his help. Steve?
I don't know about this letter right here. I'm a little bit thrown off. See, he's hiding money in our Raggedy house. But the name of this letter to me is Somebody Lying / we ain't hearing the whole truth.
I don't think so.
See, we're just not hearing this whole story, I don't think, because something is missing in this story. It don't set right with me. But one of Uncle Steve's favorite things to do, and one of my skill sets, is to dig under the surface to find out what's really going on. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go under the skin to find out what's going on. Now, she's 49. Her husband is 59. That's a 10-year difference. Been married 6 years. My first marriage, his second. That's a little telltale right there. This your first time. He done this before. He's seen the movie before, in other words. We dated a good while before he asked me to marry him. When I accepted his proposal, I told him I didn't want to live in the house that he and his wife and kids lived in. So guess what he did? He rented out his house. He honored that request. That was a big one. This man already owned the house, but you didn't want to live there. He said, cool. He rented out the house, and he bought a fixer-upper house in a great neighborhood. I wanted a new house, or at least one that was in great condition. He promised me that he had some great contractors, and he would make my dreams a reality. The house is so old, we got linoleum tiles on the kitchen floor. I contracted a professional company to get a flooring estimate. I wanted to replace all the laminate countertops in the kitchen, and after this, I'll tell you what happened, why you ain't got no kitchen yet.
All right, Steve, hold on. Part 2 of your response is coming up at 23 minutes after the hour. Today's Strawberry Letter subject, he's hiding money in our Raggedy house. We'll get back into it right after this.
You're listening to the Steve Harvey Morning Show.
Yo, keep up this. It's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you something epic. Introducing the K Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music reviews, exclusive interviews, and deep dives into the industry like never before. From producers and choreographers to idols and trainees, we're bringing you the real stories behind the music that you love. And yeah, we're keeping it 100, discussing everything from comebacks and concepts to the mental health side of the business. Because K-pop isn't just a genre, it's a whole world, and we're exploring every corner of it. And here's the best part. Fans get to call in, drop opinions, and even join us live at events. You never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K Factor on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Are you ready? Let's go.
Made for This Mountain is a podcast that exists to empower listeners to rise above their struggles, break free from the chains of trauma, and silence the negative voices that have kept them small. Through raw conversations, real stories, and actionable guidance, you can learn to face the mountain that is in front of you.
You will never be able to change or grow through the thing that you refuse to identify. The thing that you refuse to say, hey, this is my mountain. This is the struggle. This is the thing that's in front of me. You can't make that mountain move without actually diving into that.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, a time to conquer the things that once felt impossible and step boldly into the best version of yourself to awaken the unstoppable strength that's inside of us all. So tune into the podcast, focus on your emotional well-being, and climb your personal mountain.
Because it's impossible for you to be the most authentic you. It's impossible for you to love you fully if all you're doing is living to please people. Your mountain is that.
Listen to Made for This Mountain on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly.
I am talking to a felon right now, and I cannot decide if I like him or not.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take real phone calls from anonymous strangers all over the world as a fake gecko therapist and try to dig into their brains and learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's pretty interesting if you give it a shot. Matter of fact, here's a few more examples of the kinds of calls we get on this show.
I live with my boyfriend, and I found his piss jar in our apartment.
I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails. I have very overbearing parents. Even at the age of 29, they won't let me move out of their house.
So if you want an excuse to get out of your own head and see what's going on in someone else's head, search for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's the one with the green guy on it.
This week on Dear Chelsea with me, Chelsea Handler. Ed Helms is here. I, of course, was drawn to the LSD story. In the 1950s, a CIA scientist secretly bought the entire world's supply of LSD, embarking on a horrific attempt to discover the secrets to mind control.
This is so insane. This was all under official government activity. They built a apartment in San Francisco that had a glass mirror where he could sit there and watch, and then they would drug these customers, and he was just sort of taking notes and God knows what else behind this double mirror. And this was all in the name of science.
This just sounds like a guy off behind a wall.
It does.
I would just also like to say you don't have to
Yes.
take LSD like this. LSD can be microdosed. It's like an upper of energy, enthusiasm, makes you less nervous if I'm going heli skiing.
If it allows me to go hella skiing, then yeah, I'm hella on board.
Listen to Dear Chelsea on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
A lot of times, the big economic forces we hear about on the news show up in our lives in small ways.
3 or 4 days a week, I would buy 2 cups of banana pudding. But the price has gone up, so now I only buy 1.
The demand curve in action. And that's just one of the things we'll be covering on Everybody's Business from Bloomberg Business Week. I'm Max Chafkin.
And I'm Stacey Vanek Smith. Every Friday, we will be diving into the biggest stories in business, taking a look at what's going on, why it matters, and how it shows up in our everyday lives.
With guests like Business Week editor Brad Stone, sports reporter Randall Williams, and consumer spending expert Amanda Mull, we'll take you inside the boardrooms, the backrooms, even the signal chats that make our economy tick.
Hey, I want to learn about VeChain. I want to buy some blockchain or whatever it is that they're doing.
So listen to Everybody's Business on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This broadcast is sponsored by PayPal. I want to take a second to talk to you about something I think is pretty cool. PayPal lets you pay your own way with just a click. PayPal offers people flexibility on how they can pay. Once you click the PayPal button, you can choose from a bunch of payment options, like paying later with PayPal at millions of online stores. Pay in store, pay online, pay overtime. Don't just pay, PayPal. Learn more at PayPal.com. All right, come on, Steve. Let's recap today's Strawberry Letter. Subject, he's hiding money in our Raggedy house.
Yeah, he hiding money in your Raggedy house because we don't know the whole story. But you've been married now for 6 years. He's rented out the house you told him you didn't want to live in with his former wife and kids had, so he rented it out as a good husband would do, and he bought a fixer-upper. You kind of wanted a new house. He told you that he had some friends and stuff, and he'd get it fixed up. Well, you wanted a new house. He said he had some contractors, and the house is so old that y'all got linoleum floors on the kitchen. So you contact a professional company, get a flooring estimate, and I want to replace all the laminate countertops. It's been 6 years. I've saved up money to do a few little things. He hemmed and hawed, but he eventually helped me pick out the flooring. He didn't offer to help me to pay for anything because he said it was my impatience that led to the renovation. Now, this is where the letter gets tricky. It's your impatience that led to the renovation, or was it his lie that led to you having to save up to get the renovation? See, now we're about to peel back some of the skin on this onion right here and put tears in your eyes. I think it's because of the fact that he's been married before and you ain't. He's seen this movie before. Now, you're telling me that you've been saving up a little bit of money for this laminated floor, right? And he wasn't going to go for it. Whose kitchen is that big? How much that floor costs? So I don't know how much you had to save, but it's a kitchen floor. I don't know what you saved. I'm not passing judgment. I don't like to do that. But you saved up your little bit of money. But we talking 6 years, though.
6 years.
So what have you been doing, and what have y'all been doing with the money for 6 years? See, you've been buying something. And I think you may be buying some stuff that ain't got nothing to do with nothing, and he saw his money slipping away like he did with his previous wife, so he started stashing money before she get her hands on this right here too. That's what I think happened. You know, and then I see here's what led me to say that. A few weeks later, we were packing up to go to my parents' home temporarily while your floors were getting installed, which means the floors was in the process of getting done, right? I just happened to be peeking in at him in the bedroom. He carefully pulled a big envelope out of a shoebox, and I saw hundreds of dollars. You, being the gold digger that you are, ran into the room and tackled and grabbed the envelope, dove on the man. Now, he was surprised because obviously you blindsided him. He didn't see it coming. You make this head jerk back, slobber wrap around his head a little bit. He didn't know what was happening because you tackled him in his lower back because he had that envelope down low counting that money. All he could say is he had to keep a stash because I love spending his money. That's the key. See, for 6 years, he's been watching you spend money on all types of stuff. Now you come up with you on a floor. Now this man going, wait a minute, man, hold up. I've been chipping in. We've been doing this here. You got me renting out this house that I already paid for. Now you over here, we were trying to do something else, but you just spending money. You mess around after 6 years and save the money for the flow. And now you in here tackling me for cash. See how they look? He thought it was okay. I don't know how he thought it was okay to hide this large sum of money from me. I do. Because he didn't want you to spend it. That's why he was hiding it. I'm wondering if he planned to leave me in this raggedy house. Is that why he's not interested in doing any upgrades? What's he up to? Well, it seemed to me like he's up to what you ain't up to. Trying to save a little bit of money. Because he said you'd be spending all his money. And a man will do that. A man will hide some money if he think you're going to spend it all. Every man I know has done it.
What about the line, about her impatience led to the renovation. What does that mean? They've been in the house for 6 years and they still haven't gotten it renovated.
I said when I read the letter, I don't think it's her impatience that's led to the renovation. More it is his lie that led to her wanting to do the renovation. The woman got every right to want to fix her house up. Most women like living in nice homes. And it's a representative of a woman. When people come over your house and your house ain't right, the woman takes the blame for that, not the man.
Thank you.
Girl, what's she in here doing? How she got all this food? And who decorated this right here? What's she tripping?
Part.
So
all of that.
I understand that's not her fault. He lied and said he was going to fix the house up. But what happened was, as he was trying to save, he was just watching her spend. So now hold up. I can't take what I'm saving and renovate this house because she's spending all the other money. Let me save some of this money, which I would be spending on renovating the house. But since she's spending all the money, we ain't going to have no money. That's how she found him hiding the money in the envelope. But now she done managed to save up a little bit of money to get this flow done after 6 years. But he got the flow money in that box. He got the flow money and wall money in the box. I think what happened here is we have a spending problem, which leads to more divorces, financed, and even infidelity. And y'all will get left in that raggedy house if you keep spending money like that. Hold letters your fault, lady.
He needs to help her fix up that house. All right.
Thumbs down.
So she can make him a home. Please leave your comments on today's Strawberry Letter on Instagram and Facebook. It's not about you. Facebook and Instagram on SteveHarveyFM.com, and check out the Strawberry Letter podcast on demand.
You're listening to the Steve Harvey Morning Show.
Yo, K-pop fans, are you ready? It's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you the K-Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music, idols, exclusive interviews, and even the real behind-the-scenes K-pop stories. Plus, you, the fans, you're part of the show. And you can get a chance to jump in, share your opinions, and be part of the conversation like never before. And trust me, you never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K-Factor starting on April 16 on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast. It's a K-pop experience. Are you in? Let's go.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly. I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take phone calls from anonymous strangers as a fake gecko therapist and try to learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's very interesting. Check it out for yourself by searching for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Kristen Davis, host of the podcast Are You a Charlotte? Sarah Jessica Parker is here, and she is sharing stories from the very beginning, like the time she forgot we filmed the pilot episode.
I remember some things about shooting the pilot.
Right. I have some memories I can fill you in.
You're going to fill me in.
Yes, but then you forgot about it
in
the very long time they took to pick us up.
It.
Listen to Are You a Charlotte on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Made for This Mountain podcast exists to empower listeners to rise above their inner struggles and face the mountain in front of them. So during Mental Health Awareness Month, tune into the podcast, focus on your emotional well-being, and then climb that mountain.
You will never be able to change or grow through the thing that you refuse to identify. The thing that you refuse to say, hey, this is my mountain. This is the struggle.
Listen to Made for This Mountain on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I think it's a sign of great mental health to acknowledge the dark wolf inside you.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and on a recent episode of The One You Feed, Josh Radnor from How I Met Your Mother joins us to talk about fame, self-acceptance, aging, and finding peace in discomfort.
That is the mercy of time. That time, it is a healer.
To hear this and more on healing, identity, and the wisdom of slowing down, open your free iHeartRadio app, search One You Feed, and listen now.
You're listening to an iHeart podcast. Hey, it's Brad Milkey. This week on the Crime Scene Weekly, we're talking about a mom who gained national attention for faking her own kidnapping. Sherry Papini is back in the spotlight, but now she's changing her story and trying to change her custody arrangement with her kids. Listen to the latest from the case on the Crime Scene Weekly. It's Thursday, May 15th. Could your citizenship really depend on 6 little words? We start here. Birthright citizenship could be on the line at the Supreme Court.
And subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
How today's case challenging federal judges could challenge everything else. Republicans weigh cuts to Medicaid.
Hardline Republicans say, this is not enough for us.
Disagreements are now threatening to derail the most consequential bill of the year. And good news for once in the world of opioid overdoses.
An additional 80 to 81 lives saved per day.
The deaths are plummeting, but health officials want to know why. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. There's a reason so many of President Trump's decisions have prompted people to ask, wait, can he do that? One of the reasons is when you actually go and read the Constitution, the language isn't always crystal clear. It's 200-something years old. It's got amendments that were sometimes of a very specific time and place. The 14th Amendment says no state shall, quote, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process. Well, does any person include migrants who came here illegally?
It wasn't meant for these children. It wasn't meant for people that escaped or invaded, came into our country illegally.
Donald Trump says no. And even if most legal experts say otherwise, that is the sort of thing the Supreme Court has to consider. Well, one of the president's most controversial legal theories lies in that same amendment, the part that says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. That's known as birthright citizenship. Well, today at the Supreme Court, a case could hinge on the very meaning of that phrase. This could all have a huge impact on immigration law and who gets to call themselves an American. So let's start the day with ABC senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer, who covers the court. Devin, first of all, what's at stake here?
Well, this was an order, Brad, that Donald Trump signed on his first day in office on his second term, redefining the scope of citizenship in the United States. It's really an extraordinary thing if you think about it. It's something that he vowed to do during the campaign, of course, and immediately he was challenged both by individual plaintiffs, women whose soon-to-be-born children could be impacted by this changing definition, immigrant advocacy groups, and also a group of 22 states.
Civics 101 teaches us it takes an act of Congress and ratification from 38 states to change the Constitution. What the president is attempting to do is illegal.
The Constitution, as you quoted there, says if you are born on U.S. soil, you are a U.S. citizen. But what his order does is it takes issue with a specific phrase that you actually didn't read in the lead-in, and that is, it says persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. And what the Trump administration has argued in promulgating this order is that people who aren't legally here permanently, those parents, maybe one of the parents, aren't subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Therefore, their offspring are not subject and not citizens. A controversial position to be sure, but one that has ignited quite a bit of controversy.
Because the president's order attempts to circumscribe this process, it is clearly unconstitutional. The preliminary injunction is granted on a nationwide basis.
3 federal appeals courts, Brad, have upheld nationwide injunctions against this policy, against any government agency beginning to set rules for how this could be implemented, saying, in the words of one judge, it is almost certainly unconstitutional. And so the justices today, for the first time in Donald Trump's second term, will be hearing an appeal directly from the president's administration seeking to move forward with that plan.
You see, I didn't read that phrase because I thought it was boring, but you're saying the boring part is literally the whole argument here. And yet, Devin, this case then, you were telling me, it's not like these lawyers are going and saying, hey, this is all about birthright citizenship. Like, this might come down to other stuff. How is the case being sort of defined in scope?
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that the court is not poised to decide the constitutionality of what Donald Trump did. What they're actually going to be considering today is whether those individual judges around the country that blocked his order from moving forward, whether that was legal. This Trump administration has come to the court in a really unique posture. The justices don't usually hear cases in May. This is something of a highly expedited review, an emergency situation in the view of the government. They want those injunctions struck down. They don't believe that individual judges have the authority to block a president's policy nationwide.
This is like when district judges were saying, no, you can't deport these people, or no, you can't block this funding. And the White House would come out and say, like, you're a district judge. Why are you holding up this international deal or something?
Absolutely. And that's the broader implications of the argument today is the Supreme Court could put some limits on when judges can issue nationwide injunctions against a presidential policy. And that could remove roadblocks from some of President Trump's most controversial actions, depending upon how the court comes down.
Okay, so then how does that end up playing into, like, are they going to be able to rule on that stuff without the whole birthright citizenship thing you just mentioned earlier?
Yeah, some experts think it's impossible to untangle the two in this case. I mean, can you imagine the Supreme Court saying, well, those judges that temporarily blocked his order can only block it in their districts or in 22 states, but not blocked in other states? Immigrant advocacy groups I've talked to, Brad, said that would be chaos. Children born in some places getting citizenship, no matter who their parents are, but in others, not having that situation. So it's hard to see how the Supreme Court could say in a circumstance like this, a nationwide injunction is not appropriate. But we could see some limits or some parameters put on how judges can issue these things. Presidents of both parties in recent years, Brad, have complained about lowly district court judges in, say, Texas or Minnesota, Wyoming, issuing some decision that then shuts down a policy nationwide. So there is some bipartisan concern about the use of these things. That it has come to a head in this case on this issue is really remarkable. And it will be extraordinary to see how the justices chew on that today.
And just so I'm clear, I talked about how the Constitution, sometimes the language is, it's finicky and you're trying to decide what the founders meant hundreds of years ago, maybe. Has the Supreme Court really never ruled, though, on the idea of if you are born here, you're a citizen? Like, they haven't come down on that specifically?
They have more than a century ago, in fact. I mean, in the remarkable case, U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark, involving some Chinese nationals in the United States in the 1890s, and whether a child born to some Chinese nationals in California actually qualifies as a U.S. citizen. The Supreme Court, in a 6-2 decision in 1898, declared unequivocally that the Constitution, to quote the decision, in clear words and manifest intent, includes children born within the territory of the United States. Justice Horace Gray at that time said, case closed.
I feel more proud than ever of being descended from Wong Kim Ark.
And in fact, Brad, ABC News actually spoke to the great-grandson of Wong Kim Ark, the namesake of that landmark case, who told us he fears that Donald Trump is now erasing his family's legacy in this country as that critical face of American citizenship for all.
Things that we took for granted, I feel like, are at risk.
So this question has been answered before by the Supreme Court. Donald Trump is taking another pass at it. They won't get to it today on the merits, but we could get some indication of how these justices feel about Trump's attempt to rewrite history.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we probably will get rulings on other cases. They never tell you which ones they're going to rule on, but several big cases there that Devin Dwyer has been following extensively. We'll talk to you later, Devin.
Thanks, Brad.
Next up on Start Here, for tax cuts this big, something's going to have to go. Why that could be big chunks of Medicaid after the break. This show is supported by Quince. You know when you order a new shirt online and it ends up being even more comfortable than you were hoping for? I love that feeling. And that's the kind of feeling you can expect with Quince. We actually have Quince shirts in our house right now that are like our nice, relaxing wear. Quince has stylish, well-made clothes you will actually want to wear, like organic cotton silk polos, European linen beach shorts, comfortable pants that work for everything from nice dinners to casual backyard barbecues. Plus, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury pieces without the markups. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Elevate your closet with Quince. Go to quince.com/start for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/start to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/start.
This is the next phase in my therapeutic work.
Nicole Kidman returns for the Hulu original 9 Perfect Strangers Season 2.
Breathe in, breathe out.
This is safe?
We take you back to a core trauma. Breathe in, breathe out.
She is manipulating us.
Breathe in, breathe out. Why are you resisting?
Is it too late to get a refund? The all-new season of 9 Perfect Strangers is now streaming on Hulu and Disney+. New episodes May 21st.
It was a busy day on Capitol Hill yesterday. There were hearings featuring Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. But the issue that is really dominating Republican lawmakers' attention right now is crafting a massive budget bill.
It will be the biggest bill ever passed in the history of our Congress, our Senate.
President Trump has called this one big, beautiful bill that would outline everything from how much we pay in taxes to how much we allocate to all these federal programs. Well, within that bill, one of the most hotly contested topics has been Medicaid. What kind of health care do low-income Americans deserve? Well, over the last 24 hours, we have seen lawmakers staying up through all hours of the night weighing potential cuts and requirements for the Medicaid program because this is the sort of stuff that could make this bill sink or swim. ABC's Jay O'Brien covers the Hill. Jay, what's happening there?
Yeah, so this has been this simmering point of tension on Capitol Hill, Brad, for quite some time. And we on Capitol Hill always knew this fight was coming because Republicans have been crafting this big, beautiful bill that has all of Donald Trump's campaign promises in it for quite some time. But the fights on this bill really came to a head in just the last day or so. So there were 2 committees writing various parts of this legislation that had a lot of drama. One was the House Energy and Commerce Committee.
By beginning to rein in the loopholes, by ensuring states have the flexibility to remove ineligible recipients from their rolls and removing beneficiaries who are enrolled in multiple states.
They were making those changes to Medicaid that you mentioned, and frankly, those cuts to Medicaid, because House Republicans have said that they want to cut a total of $2 trillion out of the federal budget as part of this bill. And to get at some of those cuts, they're going to make changes to Medicaid, which I'll get into in a second. And also, another big part of this bill are the tax provisions.
This bill makes the 2017 tax cuts permanent, locking in lower tax rates for workers, small businesses and farmers.
$5 trillion in tax cuts, an extension of the Trump-era tax cuts from his first term, those big campaign promises like no tax on tips. So these 2 committees, the Ways and Means Committee on the tax stuff, Energy and Commerce on the Medicaid stuff, they started their markup, meaning their hearings to write the legislation. At one point in the early hours of that Medicaid markup, protesters were arrested, more than 20 of them, some of them in wheelchairs, and they were chanting. I was in the hallway watching them. No cuts to Medicaid.
The chair advises the audience that violations will not be tolerated and the violators will be removed from the room.
And what they're there to protest when it comes to these Medicaid cuts are new work requirements for ages 19 to 64 able-bodied Medicare beneficiaries, also higher copays for some Medicaid beneficiaries who make more than $15,000 a year, and other changes to Medicaid too, but those are some of the biggest.
You can call it a trim, you can call it a cut, call it whatever you want. The bottom line is these people are going to lose their Medicaid. That's why we have so many people. That's why there's so many people here today demonstrating.
And those changes will result, according to the Congressional Budget Office, in about 8 million people losing their Medicaid health insurance. But the work requirements, at least, don't kick in until 2029. And so that late delay on the work requirements and a number of other things was enough to anger some Republican hardliners who now say, Brad, that they don't like this bill that their own party is writing and hoping to pass.
That's interesting because I was going to say, I'm old enough to remember back in 2017, President Trump has just come into office. He's trying to get rid of Obamacare, which has these big Medicaid expansions. And a lot of Medicaid access ended up resting on that thumbs down from John McCain. I was going to ask you, how has the argument over Medicaid kind of evolved since then? It sounds like you're saying it's not just about the money spent. It's also that if you're going to get Medicaid, Republicans say you should have to have a job. You should have to be working a certain amount of your week to even qualify for the stuff.
Right. So the thinking on Republicans when it comes to health care has really changed. And they are very much in the biggest fight in their party over health insurance and health care since Obamacare.
You all are cutting Medicaid.
That is not what we have admitted. Do not put words into my mouth.
Will the chairman respect the parliamentary rules of your committee and allow him to speak? You're shrinking Medicaid.
Remember, Medicaid is the health insurance program for lower-income Americans and those with disabilities. And Republicans said they weren't going to touch Medicare, which is for seniors, and they can't touch Social Security in reconciliation, which is this budgeting process. So they set their sights on Medicaid. And they were going to make these kind of surgical cuts to Medicaid, like work requirements and things of that nature. And Republicans thought that not extending those subsidies, adding those work requirements, et cetera, that was going to be enough to get people in their party on board.
We're making sure that there are going to be work requirements so that able-bodied adults are truly in need of it. That's what we're doing. We're stabilizing this program.
And what I mean by the thinking changing is that there were hardliners who said, no, that is not enough for us. We want deeper cuts to Medicaid, and we want any changes to Medicaid to start now, not in 2029, the way this legislation has been written. And I can tell you that was somewhat of a surprise to those in House Republican leadership who I talked to who say, look, if we hit our number in cuts, then all of these hardliners who have been a thorn in Mike Johnson's side for so long are going to get on board, they're going to vote for this legislation, and we're going to have an easy road. And what we've seen instead are hardline Republicans say, this is not enough for us.
Everybody in this room, I know, gets fixated on a few final details about all this, but I think it's important to just state one more time what we're achieving through reconciliation. This will be one of the most consequential pieces of legislation ever passed by the United States Congress. It
really put Mike Johnson in a hard place and really cause him to question if he's going to have the votes on the Medicaid issue to get this over the goal line and pass this bill.
Right, and I've heard you say that this is not the only thing driving divisions among Republican members, but you got to imagine it's a big one because it's so fraught on either side, right? Like, you have these big spending cuts Republicans have been wanting to enact on Medicaid for years, and yet a lot of people use Medicaid, and it's not all red or blue. Like, just people in all sorts of constituencies end up either being low income or having disabilities and rely desperately on this program. Jay O'Brien, thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Over the last 15 years or so, there have been really two narratives about opioid overdoses in this country. One narrative was it's a crisis that not enough people know about. The other was it's a crisis that everyone now knows about. We just can't seem to fix it. In either of these narratives, it seemed clear that opioid deaths have been spiraling out of control. Well, yesterday, we got some good news. New numbers from the CDC that show last year opioid overdose deaths dropped significantly. Let's bring in ABC's Sony Salzman from our medical unit. Sony, this is so high stakes to so many American families, and this actually seems like good news for once. What's been happening?
Well, Brad, you are so right. In recent years, opioid deaths have been spiraling out of control. More than 100,000 people are dying of drug overdoses overall, the bulk of that comprised of those opioid overdoses. And so this has been really alarming. I mean, 100,000 people a year. And the new CDC data that we're seeing is showing that that number has dropped dramatically from 2023 to 2024, down to 80,000 deaths. So that's an additional 80 to 81 lives saved per day. Wow. So that's a big number, right? And what this also means is that we're down to the lowest number of overdose deaths in the past 5 years, since the start of the pandemic.
Okay, so yeah, like 27% reduction over the span of a year. I mean, why, I guess? What do you have a sense of what has driven that reduction?
The answer to that question is complicated and probably layered. And before I start to explain what experts think is going on here, I think it's really important to take a step back, just very briefly talk about the opioid crisis in general.
OxyContin, a powerful narcotic painkiller manufactured by Purdue Pharma, considered a wonder drug by many doctors and patients.
You'd go without eating in order to get Oxy. Yeah. You'd spend your food money on Oxy.
There have been multiple waves of this opioid epidemic. In the 90s, it was prescription medication. It was overprescribed. People didn't know or weren't made aware how addictive it was.
We saw homes being broken into where people were stealing firearms to get money to buy OxyContin. So
when regulations pulled those prescription drugs away, then it became heroin, right? And then since the 2010s, fentanyl.
Fentanyl is a synthetic drug that can be up to 100 times stronger than morphine.
And that really drove these deaths up because fentanyl is highly potent.
DEA is finding that when it seizes counterfeit pills, they contain more than 2 milligrams of fentanyl, which is considered a deadly dose. And just to put that in perspective, that is the size that could fit on the tip of a pen.
And so this is kind of the problem that's been building since, early 2010s, driving these deaths.
He is in here sitting on the couch and he's ice cold.
Now, when it comes to why are these deaths coming down, there are a lot of reasons. Reason number one is people who are living with addiction are actually getting better at saving their own lives. There are products like naloxone, which many people here refer to as Narcan. And that is a product that if you're experiencing an overdose, or more appropriately, if your buddy is experiencing an overdose, you can, push this little plunger into their nose and it does revive them. The use of Narcan has taken off. I started carrying Narcan a few years ago just because I live in New York City and I thought, it would be good to have this in my purse. Another really big difference here is local and federal health authorities have really invested in medication-assisted treatment, drugs like methadone and buprenorphine. These are drugs that people can take that curb those addictions, and that does help. So getting broader access to those medications. Another factor here is community workers. These would be non-medical professionals who've really stepped up. And some of the most compelling examples that we've seen in our reporting are people who were previously addicted, they're living in remission, and they work in the community. They can say, hey, I know what it's like. I've been there. And they can help connect people to resources. So there could be other factors going on, X factors. There are always changes in the drug supply, what drug dealers are getting and putting in their drugs. But, these are some of the factors that public health experts talk about as probably contributing to this declining death rate.
It's really interesting. And again, just the number, you're talking about 80 people a day perhaps saved. What do health experts recommend, I guess, to keep these numbers from spiking again? Because we've seen how quickly these numbers can fluctuate.
Well, Brad, I think this is a really important point. And I want to point out that what we're talking about today is deaths going down. This doesn't mean that fewer people necessarily are living with addiction, right? Addiction is a huge problem, and public health professionals have gotten better at learning how to keep people alive once they're addicted. And I would say that a lot of health professionals want to keep that pressure on. We need to keep people alive, obviously. And then in addition to that, it's going to be an additional effort to talk about, okay, what are the factors that are causing people to slip into addiction in the first place? And I just want to point out that 1 out of 10 people 12 and up is living with some sort of drug addiction. So it's not an insignificant amount of people.
Well, yeah, that's a great point, that overdose deaths is different from, there are still overdoses, there are still addictions. However, not having those become these statistics of death is a huge step thus far. Sony Salzman with our medical unit, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, one more quick break. When we come back, you know what they say about not spoiling your appetite? It's really tough. One last thing is next.
Yeah, the NBA playoffs are here, and it's about to be ridiculous, unbelievable, unfair, downright nasty, straight up, can't miss, don't blink, grab your popcorn and strap in cinema. This isn't about who's next. This is about who's now. This time is different.
The NBA playoffs, presented by Google.
continue on ESPN ABC.
And one last thing. There's this famous experiment in the psychology world. It's called the marshmallow test. In the 1970s, Stanford researchers wanted to study the effects of delayed gratification. So they'd sit with a little kid, they'd put a marshmallow in front of them, and they'd say, you can have this marshmallow now, or if you can wait 15 whole minutes, we'll give you 2 marshmallows. Then they'd walk out of the room. It's a simple experiment, but a brilliant one. It's been replicated several times since, and every time you can see these 4- and 5-year-olds wrestling with their immediate wants versus an abstract promise of something greater. Some of them cover their eyes or try to distract themselves as their mouths water. Many just can't help themselves.
It's often considered a benchmark for people's future success later in life, that people who have better inhibitory control have better life outcomes.
This is Keith Jensen. He's Canadian by birth, but now he does his research at the University of Manchester in the UK.
I studied children and chimpanzees and a few other animals in between.
This week, he and his team put out a paper about a new twist on this experiment, in which they asked, what if children had to rely on each other to get a second treat?
The choices were interdependent. If either child ate their treat, no child got their treat. So there's an element of risk to that.
Now, this was at the height of the COVID pandemic, so they monitored children on webcams, but that also gave them the chance to offer the same teammate to these kids over and over, Keith Jensen's own son, Liam. Liam, can I ask you some questions?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, wait, say again how old you are for me?
11.
Liam was around 6 at the time of this experiment, and he played the role known by scientists as a confederate, a fake ally. Kids would sit down and see what they thought was a live webcam of Liam sitting in front of his own cookie.
I baked a fresh batch of cookies, and then Liam would have to sit there in front of a cookie for 10 or 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, also it was funny because I would make the cookies with you, so it'd be harder to not want to eat them.
Instead of having Liam do this dozens of times, he was just recorded twice saying 2 different things. Remember, the kids here are being told, if both of you and your teammate can resist temptation, you'll each get that extra treat. So in one video, Liam is saying,
I promise I will not eat the cookie.
A strong promise, a solemn vow. In the other video, though, Liam expresses much less willpower.
I think I will eat the cookie.
And sure enough, as the minutes ticked by, as kids were told their cookie fate rested on their combined ability to control their impulses, Liam's promise had a big effect on these kids, particularly the younger ones. If they thought Liam was standing firm, well, so would they.
This effect was stronger in the 5-year-olds than in the 7-year-olds. So the 5-year-olds were particularly either naive trusters about promises. They either really bought the promise, whereas older kids are like, yeah, I'm not buying this.
But what this also showed was the power of knowing someone out there is going through the same struggle as you right now. Knowing that you're each accountable for each other. That is the sort of stuff that can get you through tough times, young or old.
Well, one of the things people do if they're on a weight loss journey, they'll buddy up with somebody. Because it's hard to make a commitment to yourself. Because you can cut yourself slack, but you don't want to break a commitment to somebody else. So if you make a commitment to a buddy saying, I'm going to not drink beer for a week and try and lose weight by exercising more, you're going to feel more committed to that yourself.
We learn these concepts early about the feeling of giving into temptation, about losing our trust in others, about peer pressure. But another thing we learn, according to this experiment perhaps just as early, is that peer pressure can be a good thing too. You just need some marshmallows and some more time to appreciate it. I don't know, does Liam actually seem really mature for 11 years old? Or maybe it's just his accent. Or maybe this experiment gave him better impulse control than I've ever had in my whole life. Hey, just out this morning, a new episode of the Crime Scene Weekly. This week we're talking about the bizarre case of Sherry Papini, a woman who admitted to faking her own kidnapping, but now she's saying that was a lie. She actually was kidnapped, and by the way, she wants increased visitation rights with her kids. So a lot to talk about there. Friend of the pod, Matt Gutman, is telling us about it all on the Crime Scene, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Brad Milkey. I'll see you tomorrow.
The cultural phenomenon The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is back with an all-new season now streaming on Hulu. Where is everyone at?
Mom Talk has gotten to a really hostile point.
Demi's willing to kick Jesse out of the group.
I feel like I'm walking into a lion's den.
It's gonna get messy, for sure.
Mom Talk is turning on each other left and right.
The police are here. I can't see this going any other way but a pure bloodbath.
This is so toxic.
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, now streaming on Hulu.
It's Wednesday, May 14th. She's the star witness, and she's got receipts. We start here. Sean Diddy Combs faces searing testimony from a key accuser.
If she refused, she said Sean Combs would be violent.
This could have been one of the biggest days of this trial, and our team was in the room for all of it. Life without parole no longer applies to the Menendez brothers.
Today is a great day after 35 years.
Why a judge stood by his ruling even after the prosecutor's office changed its mind. And President Trump outlines a new vision for Syria.
In order to give them a chance at greatness.
How his relationship with Middle Eastern royals is impacting policy. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. One of the lessons of the Me Too era has been that sexual predators are just that, predators. In many cases, it's not just one victim. In many cases, these victims have been pressured in ways large and small to stay quiet. And the more of these cases we saw over the last several years, the more we learned that rich and powerful men were capable of keeping these secrets secret for years. The case of Sean Diddy Combs revolves around claims of sexual abuse, but those claims also go a step further. Federal prosecutors say the hip-hop mogul used his vast resources to treat that abuse like entertainment for himself and for others, and that he employed a network of cronies to keep the abuse going. Combs has pleaded not guilty, but this week, a jury was selected, lawyers made their opening statements, and yesterday, with the eyes of the world squarely on this federal courtroom in Lower Manhattan, we heard the most dramatic testimony so far. A warning to our listeners, there are graphic descriptions here, but let's go to ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, who was in court. He joins us from outside the courthouse right now. Aaron, this was day 2 of the trial yesterday. Can you just walk us through, I guess, what's been happening the last 48 hours, starting with the opening statements?
Brad, every celebrity has an entourage, right? Federal prosecutors told the jury right from the start that Sean Combs and the people around him operated as a criminal enterprise. They're treating Combs and his entourage like they might treat a mob family.
As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity.
They said that Combs committed crime after crime for 20 years, and that included kidnapping and arson, all sorts of acts of violence. But the primary goal of the so-called criminal enterprise, federal prosecutors say, was coercing women into these marathon sex performances with male prostitutes that were known as freak-offs. And Cassie Ventura, who was a fixture at Sean Combs' side for more than a decade, testified as probably the star witness in this case that she was forced to participate in these freak-offs starting when she was 22 years old, and as she put it, too naive to know what was going on. But she ended up humiliated, she ended up feeling degraded, objectified, and if she refused, she said Sean Combs got violent with her.
Well, and that's the thing, is Cassie Ventura, a lot of the world just knows her as Cassie, the recording artist, but this really did seem like the most visceral testimony that prosecutors plan to offer here. I mean, how detailed did she get?
Brad, her testimony was raw, it was emotional, much of it is too graphic for us to even discuss, and it was probably a little too disgusting for some of the jurors who even appeared to wince as she was talking about what went on in these sexual marathons with male prostitutes. She said she met Sean Combs when she was 19. He signed her to a long-term recording contract with Bad Boy Records, and that enabled him, she said, to take control of her financially, her career, her money. He paid her rent in multiple places, multiple apartments. And at one point when she was 22 years old, he proposed what he first described as voyeurism, where he wanted her to have sex with other men while he watched. Mm-hmm. And that's what Cassie Ventura said ended up going on almost weekly, to the point where it became like a full-time job, and it stifled her music career. And at first, she said she was a willing participant because she wanted to make him happy. But then she was reluctant, but it didn't matter. She was in too deep. If she refused, she said Sean Combs would be violent.
And, the defense from the Combs team has been like this was all consensual. When things got wild, it was sort of spur of the moment, whatever. How did she describe Combs' involvement and, I guess, organization of it all? Because that does seem like a key part of a racketeering charge.
It is a key part. This was not just a bunch of sex that was recorded for blackmail purposes, although prosecutors say that was part of it. But the way that Cassie Ventura described it, Sean Combs orchestrated everything. These were highly produced. He picked the lighting. He picked the supplies, Johnson's baby oil, Astroglide lubricant. His staff members and his security guards supplied drugs and made sure the hotel rooms had all the supplies that were needed. And she took drugs that she said Combs supplied beforehand because she said she couldn't imagine not having a buffer to have sex with men she didn't want to be having sex with. And it took her days to recover from some of these things. But she described Combs as helping choose the escorts, paying the money, controlling every aspect of these freak-offs.
What happens next? I guess, what are defense cross-examinations going to look like, both in this and in other parts of this trial?
It's going to be brutal, Brad. You can imagine the defense insisting that Cassie Ventura willingly participated in all this because they've called her a capable, strong, adult woman.
He didn't do these things. This was a 10-year relationship. There's no coercion. There's no crime.
Who had her own reasons to make what they called a free choice. And even though the defense conceded that Cassie and Combs had a toxic, even violent relationship, they said that's not sex trafficking. That's not racketeering.
Last question, Aaron. What's it like at the courthouse?
It's tense. Sean Combs comes in clearly happy to see his family, his mother, his children seated in the second row. He smiles at them.
The children are there for all of this, for all this testimony.
The children are there, but Brad, when it gets graphic, his daughters especially stand up and they walk out.
Okay.
And there have been things that no father would want their daughter to hear.
Right.
But much of his family that has come to court has stayed for all of it. Much of the jury is listening stoically, stone-faced, even when they find it, too much to bear. And Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs hadn't seen each other until now. It's more than 6 years since their breakup in 2018. Combs looked at her as she took the witness stand in a form-fitting brown dress. She did not appear to look at him.
Right, that dress made clear she is very pregnant now and under a very bright spotlight as that testimony continues today. Aaron Katursky, as always, will be in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Next up on Start Here, life without parole has become 50 years with parole. The decision overnight in the case of the Menendez brothers. After the break. This show is supported by Quince. You know when you order a new shirt online and it ends up being even more comfortable than you were hoping for? I love that feeling. And that's the kind of feeling you can expect with Quince. We actually have Quince shirts in our house right now that are like our nice, relaxing wear. Quince has stylish, well-made clothes you will actually want to wear, like organic cotton silk polos, European linen beach shorts, comfortable pants that work for everything from nice dinners to casual backyard barbecues. Plus, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury pieces without the markups. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Elevate your closet with Quince. Go to quince.com/start for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/start to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/start. This show is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. When you need to hire someone, you need them now. And every hour you spend on the tedious logistics of scheduling interviews is another hour without the perfect person in the role. Luckily, ZipRecruiter makes hiring as fast and easy as speed dating. With Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter, you can post your job today and start talking to qualified candidates tomorrow. Right now, you can try Zip Intro for free at ziprecruiter.com/starthere. All you need to do is post your job and plug in your availability for interviews. I wish I could do that for my interviews. Zip Intro will automatically help identify qualified candidates for you. Then you can choose who you want to talk to, and Zip Intro will set up back-to-back video calls for as soon as the next day. Enjoy the benefits of speed hiring with new Zip Intro, only from ZipRecruiter, rated #1 hiring site based on G2. Try Zip Intro for free at ziprecruiter.com/starthere. Again, that's ziprecruiter.com/starthere. Zip Intro. Post jobs today. Talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Now, the Diddy trial was not the only big trial playing out yesterday. In France, Kim Kardashian testified about a 2016 robbery in Paris that she said profoundly altered her life. In California, the Menendez brothers, who had been imprisoned for killing their parents back in 1989, they were appearing before a judge. They weren't disputing whether they did it, but they were contesting their sentence of life without parole. Well, last night, in a dramatic scene in Los Angeles, a judge ruled in their favor. ABC's Alex Stone is based in LA. He was in the courthouse for this. Alex, can you walk me through this? What happened here?
This was dramatic. It was hours of family members getting up on the witness stand, many of them quite emotional, very nervous. This is what they had been waiting for many, many years, and that they did not have the chance until now. A relatively new resentencing law in California that gave the brothers the opportunity to go before a court and say, we have been so rehabilitated in prison that we deserve a chance at freedom. And the judge listened to these family members, along with a former judge who has worked with the Menendez brothers, and he said he was blown away by the incredible men that they have become. And a fellow former inmate who was a fellow inmate who is a rapper who says that in prison, they turned his life around to where he was able to get out and that he was able to live a life and have children, and he was quite emotional as well. But many of the family members, when they got up, they said that these are remarkable men. One of their cousins saying they are wonderful human beings. She shed tears while she was up there. Many of the family members did. But Brad, we thought this hearing was going to go for a couple of days. It went for one day. Their attorney called fewer witnesses than we were expecting. And then all of a sudden, Mark Garagos, her attorney, said, I have no more witnesses, Your Honor. And then it went very quick from there, where the judge said, let's resentence them, and then gave the brothers a chance to talk to the judge.
What did they say?
When they were given the chance to speak, they had prepared statements ready to go, and Lyle Menendez told the judge, I killed my mom and dad. I give no excuses. And that's important because the district attorney here has said that they've never really come clean on this and that they've lied over many years. They admitted in their statements that they had lied over many years, but they said over and over again that it was their choice to point a gun at their mom and dad. And they got quite graphic about putting the gun to their heads. And they admitted to committing perjury by lying in court and getting others to lie during the trial so many years ago. They said, I don't blame my parents. Lyle did. He said, I was 21 years old and I thought I could fix what I could not fix. And he said he felt shame before the murders, hid from everybody, but said he has since built strong, healthy relationships in prison, and both of them apologized to their family for years of lies and the shock and grief that came with the crimes. Eric said, I committed an atrocious act. He said my actions were criminal, selfish, and cowardly. He said there is no excuse, no justification for what I did. And then the judge immediately handed down the sentence, and the brothers sat stone-faced, the judge saying, I have thought long and hard about this, that I've given it a lot of thought. And he said under the laws of California, he had to resentence them. But he also said, Brad, while he feels like that it's pretty incredible what the brothers have done in prison and all the good that they have done, that it was a terrible crime, that what they did, murdering their parents, murdering their mom who sat watching TV after shooting their dad, they went back and made sure she was dead and shot her again, that he said that I cannot excuse. So not bringing it down to manslaughter, but saying instead 50 years to life.
The fact is, the Menendez brothers have done remarkable work, and Today is a great day after 35 years.
And so then the attorneys came outside, and Mark Garagos, their attorney, they were celebrating this as a victory of what they've been fighting for.
Wow, so it's stunning here that the judge is essentially saying, yeah, we're going to re-sentence you. It's no longer life without parole. It's not the lowest it can be, but you've certainly seen 50-year sentences turn into, you can get out of prison earlier after maybe 30 years with good behavior. That's kind of where they are at now. But this was confusing because they were pursuing a few different paths to getting out. One of them was this resentencing thing. One of them was clemency, perhaps from the governor's office. They were kind of pleading their case publicly. And then even with the resentencing thing, you had the district attorney's office kind of going back and forth. An old district attorney said, we think they should get out. The new district attorney was saying, we don't think they should get out. And they actually said they could be a moderate risk to people outside of prison. How did the judge weigh all that?
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk about this in the hearing because prosecutors wanted the judge to really bring it into account, saying, yeah, but they are a moderate risk to the community. And the judge said, because they had illegal cell phones mainly in prison, that's what the parole board has found. And he kind of said, look, every inmate in prison has an illegal cell phone. We're not talking about a gang leader, somebody who was running a prison gang.
It doesn't mean you're dangerous necessarily outside.
Yeah, or a murder in prison, that sort of thing. Now, they went back years, prosecutors did, and the report did, to find them a moderate risk of some drug trading that went on years ago. And Eric allegedly helped other inmates with tax fraud, according to prosecutors, years ago. All of that comes into the risk report. But the judge said he was going to look at that, but that wasn't done for the court. That was done for the governor in his clemency decision. So it really wasn't even meant to be brought into court. And the judge said, I understand it, but you're not saying that they were violent or they've done anything violent. And he just kind of put it to the side.
And like you said, this is going to play out in the parole system now. But the fact that it's getting to the parole system says a lot about where sort of the nation and at least California have come in terms of who should get life without parole. What does that really mean? And can you undo that even after someone's been sentenced to it? Alex Stone, who is in court for all this, thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks, Brad.
President Trump flew into the Middle East on Monday for his first foreign trip of his term. But yesterday morning in Saudi Arabia, it started in earnest.
As you know, we have the biggest business leaders in the world here today. They're going to walk away with a lot of checks.
And while we talked yesterday about how central the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is to so many countries in the region, that is not the only issue on the table here. And President Trump made some news on several fronts. ABC's White House correspondent Karen Travers is in Saudi Arabia right now. She's traveling with the president on this trip. Karen, there was this busy day yesterday, several events outlining the president's vision for the Middle East. What were the big takeaways here?
I think the big headline was the surprise announcement he made related to Syria. The president said yesterday that he hoped the new government in Syria would succeed in stabilizing the country and keep the peace there.
That's what we want to see in Syria. They've had their share of travesty, war, killing.
Remember, of course, back in December, Bashar al-Assad, the longtime president, was overthrown. His regime was taken down. And the current president, he was a big leader of that movement.
The Islamist leader of the main rebel group, Abu Muhammad al-Golani, saying, "This victory, my brothers, is a new chapter in the history of the entire Islamic nation."
Since then, the Trump administration hasn't formally recognized the new Syrian government. The Biden administration sort of punted on that at the end as they were leaving office, saying, the Trump administration's coming in. We're going to leave that up to them to decide as a foreign policy matter.
That's why my administration has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade.
But it was a two-part announcement from the president.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Sanctions have been in place for decades. They've been really crippling for Syria's economy. And there's a lot of concern here in the region that the country will not have a chance to rebuild so long as these sanctions stay in place. And so the president was actually pressured on this by Turkey's President Erdogan and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. And President Trump acknowledged that yesterday, that he heard it from them. It was at their urging.
Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince.
The president today is actually going to be meeting with the new Syrian president here in Riyadh. This was not something that was originally on the president's agenda. The White House announced yesterday that they were adding this. They're downplaying it. They're saying that this was a chance for them to say hello to each other. But Brad, this would be the first time a U.S. president has met a Syrian leader since 2000. So 25 years It's been. So it's significant, even if it is just a quick hello.
And you mentioned the Mohammed bin Salman thing. I mean, what was the reaction in the region to this announcement from the president? And what is the relationship like between him and these Arab world leaders?
I mean, he was just heaping praise on the Crown Prince yesterday.
The gentleman that's right before me, he's your greatest representative.
It's like everything has been forgotten of the last couple of years. The fact that the Crown Prince approved the assassination of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, that the concerns about human rights issues in Saudi Arabia. I mean, President Biden at one point labeled Saudi Arabia a pariah. And remember, Biden, there was a lot of heat that he took when he gave that fist pump to the Crown Prince a couple of years ago.
And if I didn't like him, I'd get out of here so fast. You know that, don't you? He knows me well. I do. I like him a lot. I like him too much. That's why we give so much, Too much. I like you too much.
I mean, there was just such a personal touch to the things he was talking about. Now, here's an important part of that, Brad. The Crown Prince promised him right after he was elected and then took office in January that the Saudis are going to invest $600 billion in the United States. The president says he wants to get that to $1 trillion. So it's maybe not hard to have a very warm affection for somebody that is promising investment like that. $600 billion, $142 billion of that would be an arms sales agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia.
Nobody makes military equipment like us. We have the best military equipment, the best missiles, the best rockets, the best everything.
But that was the big focus for the president. It wasn't about, security in the region or diplomacy in the region. It's about business and trying to set up economic opportunities between these wealthy Gulf countries and the United States, and American companies being able to come here and set up shop.
Well, and what's interesting, Karen, is that $600 billion, that's for the country of the United States of America, right? We've also been hearing, though, about reporting for a plane from the Qataris that sounds almost like it would be conceivably more geared for the personal use of President Trump as Air Force One when he's in office, and then maybe even also after he leaves office, maybe for his foundation. Does the personal wealth thing play into how he's approaching the Middle East? Is that a part of this or no?
The White House will say absolutely not, that the president stepped away from his business. He is not making anything off of this, that he is just here to promote the United States and American business. But it's really hard not to see this blurring of the president's efforts here on economic cooperation and what that might mean for his family's personal financial interests. He was greeted at the airport yesterday by the head of the Saudi Wealth Fund. That has invested $2 billion in his son-in-law Jared Kushner's business. The Live Golf Tour is also invested in by the Saudi Wealth Fund. They've hosted multiple golf events at Trump's properties, his golf courses. His sons, Eric and Don Jr., who now run the Trump Organization, have been in the region recently. They're talking about real estate deals in all of the countries that he's visiting this week. A golf resort in Doha. There's going to be another Trump Tower in Abu Dhabi. I mean, this is significant, and it's hard not to look at the trip itinerary and the themes he's talking about and not see that other side of it too, and what his family is doing here, also creating economic opportunities.
All right, and the president in Qatar today, which means Karen Travers will be in Qatar today as well. Karen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, one more quick break. When we come back, take them back to the ball game. One last thing is next.
Yeah, the NBA playoffs are here, and it's about to be ridiculous, unbelievable, unfair, downright nasty, straight up, can't miss, don't blink, grab your popcorn and strap in cinema. This isn't about who's next. This is about who's now. This time is different.
The NBA playoffs, presented by Google. Continue on ESPN and ABC.
And one last thing. Last year, I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame for the very first time in Cooperstown, New York. For all intents and purposes, it's a museum, but I gotta tell you, baseball fans treat that place like a sanctuary, a shrine. One of the reasons is that it memorializes entire generations. Like standing there, looking at old memorabilia, you can draw this line from you to your parents to your grandparents, all connected through our heroes. But some of baseball's biggest stars aren't there. They've been banned. Well, yesterday, all at once, that changed.
Big news in baseball. Commissioner Rob Manfred has removed Pete Rose from the permanently ineligible list.
In a sweeping decision, baseball commissioner Rob Manfred wrote in a letter that several players will be taken off of baseball's notorious ineligible list, including Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson. And to understand how big of a deal this is, you have to understand how good these guys were and why they were banned in the first place. Back in 1919, Shoeless Joe Jackson was a national icon, the best player on the best team in the league, the Chicago White Sox. Then, the players conspired with gamblers to fix the World Series. They lost on purpose. And Shoeless Joe, despite being acquitted by a jury, despite having an incredible series himself, became the face of this Black Sox scandal. This was memorialized in movies, from 8 Men Out,
Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
to Field of Dreams.
Getting thrown out of baseball was like having part of me amputated.
And for as legendary as Shoeless Joe was, Pete Rose was perhaps even more beloved.
Rose swings. There it is! There it is! Get out! Get out! All right! Hit number 4192.
Rose wasn't just a great hitter. He recorded more hits than anyone in the history of the major leagues. His record still stands. He was known as Charlie Hustle. Coaches preached his work ethic to little leaguers. Fathers told their sons, be more like Pete Rose. Well, then, in the 80s, Pete Rose was banned for the game's cardinal sin, betting on baseball.
He bet on baseball between 1985 and 1987, when Rose managed Cincinnati, including 52 times on his own team.
What's bizarre here is he only developed this habit after his playing days were over. He bet on games as a manager, and he says when he did bet on his own team, it was to win.
It's like I went through this bad phase of my life with the gambling, and that phase never resurfaced.
No one has come out ever definitively saying he fixed games, but to a league still scarred by the Black Sox, it didn't matter. All of this undermines the game. He had to go. And Rose didn't do himself any favors. At first, he lied about it.
And the only thing I can tell the fans is I did not bet on baseball. Got too much respect for the game.
And when he finally did admit it in 2004...
Did you bet on baseball?
Yes, I did, and that was my mistake, not coming clean a lot earlier.
He refused to lay low. While baseball considered his case, he would show up across the street from Hall of Fame ceremonies where he wasn't welcome, egging on fans who demanded baseball reinstate him. Rose died last year, which raised the question, was this supposed to be a lifetime ban or an eternal ban? Shoeless Joe has been dead for 70 years. When is it supposed to end?
Manfred ruled the MLB's punishment of banned individuals ends upon their deaths.
This seems to be Commissioner Rob Manfred's reasoning for reinstating them. Quote, a person no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game, end quote. Now, this does not necessarily mean they will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Once they're taken off this list, they still have to be voted in. But the real question in all of this is, who should be honored? And why do we honor them at all? Is it for the sake of the players themselves? Because if so, the window for these guys has long closed. Is it just to catalog their achievements for the stats? Well, if that's the case, few on the ballot will be more deserving than these players. You could sense the palpable excitement among Cincinnati Reds fans last night.
I was excited. Favorite player of baseball of all time.
He should never be on the ban list, in my personal opinion, in the first place.
I just wish it had happened 10 years ago, so he could have been here.
But then I think, are these honors actually for the rest of us? Is it really about legend making, articulating what we all want in our collective heroes? Because if that's the case, you got to imagine that in a sport that has seen segregation and steroids and is now promoting gambling by its own fans, these questions will linger as long as the records. fun fact, they were already called the Black Sox before the gambling scandal because their owner was apparently so cheap that he wouldn't pay to wash their uniforms very regularly. But for 40 years now, since Pete Rose, this has been one of the biggest controversies in sports, and just like that, it's over. Hey, don't forget, if you're enjoying the show, don't act like it's an illegal wager. Don't keep it a secret. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell Alexa. Shout out to our Amazon Echo listeners out there. I'm Brad Milkey. I'll see you tomorrow.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
The cultural phenomenon The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is back with an all-new season coming to Hulu May 15th.
Where is everyone at? Mom Talk has gotten to a really hostile point. Demi's willing to kick Jesse out of the group.
I feel like I'm walking into a lion's den.
It's gonna get messy, for sure. Mom Talk is turning on each other left and right. The police are here.
I can't see this going any other way but a pure bloodbath.
This is so toxic.
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, streaming on Hulu May 15th.